everyone, Jamie Maloney here, host of That Business Show 2.0, where business becomes show business. I want to thank all the listeners and viewers out there, wherever that is that you are, whether you listen and watch live each weekday morning to the new episodes at thatbusinessnetwork.com, or made available all across the web on multiple podcasting platforms in iTunes and YouTube, as well as Spreaker, Google Play, and a lot of other sites as well. So this past couple of weeks ago, actually I just noticed it this past week, I was watching the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony for 2017. I'm a huge lover of music. Many great acts were inducted this year, from Tupac Shakur, Yes, Joan Baez, and Journey finally made it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. And I wanted to talk about Journey specifically because they are a brand that has transcended generations. And I say they're a brand before a band because there is only one original member in that group that has been there since the beginning and has contributed to all the albums, and that is guitarist Neal Schon. Journey formed in 1973. Neal Schon and I think Herbie Herbert was the band's manager at the time. You know, put together the original cast of the band, and I don't even recall the original lineup of the band. Steve Perry, who would become the face of the band, didn't even come into the band until 4 or 5 years into it. But Neal Schon, being a guitarist, a young guy playing with Santana at the time, saw the opportunity along with Herbie to put together this band, which was revolutionary at the time. They had a sound that was unique, inspirational. As they described it in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it was sort of like the Grateful Dead on steroids, and they began to develop, a following. But it really wasn't until their 1981 hits, "Don't Stop Believin'" and "Open Arms" came to the radio, that they really began to make their way in the music business. And over the coming decade in the 1980s, they really became a staple of the music industry, with Steve Perry at the head of the band, and until about, I think he left in the early 90s approximately, took a hiatus, came back in the late 90s, had an accident, couldn't come on stage, and then they separated again, and then they would go on to hire a couple other people in the interim, to their current lead singer, Arnel Pineda, who was found on YouTube, ironically. A lot of singers these days are found on YouTube, but nonetheless, a band or a brand that has transcended generations. And I wrote a blog this past week about it, and it's entitled "A Brand Bigger Than You." And so what Journey represents is they represent the ability to sustain as a brand in the absence of any of the members. If Guns N' Roses had lost Axl Rose in the early 90s, they wouldn't have been Guns N' Roses anymore. If Metallica loses James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich, they're no longer Metallica. You can't just bring in people to certain bands and have the fans still receive them the same way. But Journey has been able to survive that, and it goes along to the importance of building a brand that is sustainable across industries, across generations. And Journey is truly a band that has transcended these generations. Steve Perry, being the recognized face of the band, hasn't even been with the band originally in 30 years. He played with them in the 90s for a short time, but he really left the band in the either late 80s or early 90s. But you would think that he was such a recognized face of that band that the listeners and the fans would have punished Journey, but they really haven't. So Herbie Herbert has built this band that is centered around a brand, and they've had 9 other members in the band that were not recognized at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The core members of the group were inducted at the Hall of Fame this past, well, I saw a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure when the actual live event was, but it was sometime here in the last month or so. But Steve Perry was inducted along with Neal Schon and about 4 other of the members. And honestly, I don't even know the names of the other members. I just know Neal Schon, legendary guitarist and original founder of the group, and of course Steve Perry, who everybody recognizes. But today, Journey looks nothing like the original cast. Only Neal Schon is there, and Arnel Pineda now heads the group. I even felt bad for Arnel at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony, because he didn't get to come up on stage with the band to be inducted. He was not inducted as part of the ceremony, but after the speeches were given by each of the bandmates, including Steve Perry, who was there and who was cordial, performed, Arnel then came up on stage and performed with the band. But it's ironic too that Journey, it represents, you know, the musical entrepreneurial journey, and they have the name Journey because we use the term entrepreneurial journey so many times. And you know, they've really developed a brand that is unbreakable, and it's something as a business owner that you want to think about yourself. Could you step outside of your own brand, and could the business sustain itself? A lot of times, no. I mean, for the small business owner, they are the brand. But you always want to be thinking about ways to get to the point to where you can step outside of the brand and have it last without, you know, fear of losing your customers, losing your clients. And Journey, it's just an incredible story, and the blog I wrote this past week will be made available up on TampaBayRadioblog.com for reading. But I also find it ironic too that they're probably their #1 best-selling song is probably Open Arms, but right there and behind it, and arguably so, Don't Stop Believin' is probably their most recognized song. I think Open Arms sold more individual singles and got a higher chart topping play than Don't Stop Believin'. But that song is an inspiration to us all, no matter in life or in business. Nobody says a bad word about Don't Stop Believing. It's truly one of the great American songs from one of the truly great American bands, Journey. And to see them finally get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this past year was something that was, you know, welcome to see. They'd been looked over for many years, and now they are inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Only time will tell if Arnel Pineda will get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I felt bad for him because he's also been the longest head man of the band that they've ever had. He's been with them longer continually than Steve Perry was with the band, and Arnel Pineda coming into the group around 2007, and I had the privilege of seeing them in concert in Tampa at the local amphitheater. And the singer Arnel Pineda is a spot-on match for Steve Perry. If I close my eyes and I hear each of them sing a song, I can't tell the difference between the two. That's how good Arnel Pineda is, a guy coming out of the Philippines, singing for a band called Zoo and being discovered on YouTube, which opens up another talking point is, you know, this age of you know, technology that we're in and how talent is discovered these days. In the past, bands were discovered by producers and promoters going to bands and listening to them on stage in different clubs. Not now. People go onto YouTube and they find tribute bands and cover bands, and that's how they found the replacement singer for the for Journey, and Arnel Pineda getting the job as a result of that. Sort of reminds me of the movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg, when the band, forget the name of the band right now, but went out there and discovered him. But they discovered him through traditional methods. But today you're found on YouTube. So it's important to have a presence on the web in your business, because you don't know where opportunity is going to lie. And it brings me back to another blog that I wrote called Opportunity is the Dark Matter of the Professional World. And I say that because opportunity is all around us, but yet we can't see it, we can't recognize it, but we only know that it's there because we see the effect that it has on others, or we see it actually happen to other people in the community. And you're probably like, well, dark matter, what are you talking about? The analogy comes from the world of physics and our vast universe, which is made up of only 5 to 10% of actual recognizable matter that we can see, touch, and feel. Other 80% of it is dark matter, and then another 10, 20% of it, I don't have my numbers perfectly lined up, I know that, but then there's dark matter. So you got dark energy and dark matter, and what is that? It's material that cannot be seen, touched, or determined, but the only reason that physicists know that it's there because they can see its influence on the surroundings. And the universe right now is in a point that has always been expanding, and it's expanding at an accelerating rate. which doesn't make sense to physicists. I mean, for something to expand and expand at an accelerating rate, you have to have energy being put into the system to keep it pushing out. Otherwise, what happens with a typical explosion, the Big Bang, things explode, gravity should eventually slow it down and pull it all back in. But dark energy is not allowing that to happen, so dark energy is pushing the universe further apart. So that brings me back again to the original analogy that opportunity is the dark matter of the business world. It's out there. You can see it because people have achieved and will continue to achieve success, but you don't know where it's going to come from. So it's important to have a presence all across the internet, all across the community. Get involved with your local chambers, get involved with local nonprofits, become an influencer. And very important, because you don't know where that next opportunity is going to come from. So again, originally talking about journey and them getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year, a brand that has transcended generations, a brand/band that is able to take members out, put other members in, and still continue on with becoming a legendary band that has now been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So again, just wanted to share that moment with the audience. I'm a true lover of music and also a true lover of Journey, who leaves us with some great tips for how to succeed in business with the name of their song, Don't Stop Believing, which is true to business. Don't stop believing. So again, you've been listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.
Hi, welcome to Yeager's. We just want to take a minute and show you what we're all about. At Yeager's, our primary business is hardwood flooring, although we are remodelers for kitchen, bath, and general construction. We operate a fleet of shop-at-home vans that have all the flooring type products: hardwood flooring, laminate flooring, tiles, stone, what have you. So we're able to come out first with products in our vehicles and take a look at the setting, how the colors will work, and then to be able to come up with some options and ideas for you. If that's not good enough, we have a large distribution center that we inventory product and have a nice display area.
Jackie Skelton from JR World Travel here. If you travel, you need a licensed professional travel consultant, not a computer. Your licensed professional consultant can get you more for your time and your money. Value for your money and experience, not marketing salesmanship. When you're sick, you call the doctor. When you need legal advice, you call an attorney. So the next time you want to go on any type of travel, call your licensed professional travel consultant who actually represents you. We specialise in group travel, family reunions, weddings, to escorting large groups or making special arrangements for the disabled. Please call 844-249-0190. We are a full-service travel consultancy offering worldwide concierge service. Air, land, sea, rivers, resorts, locally, nationally and internationally. Remember that number, 844-249-0190.
And welcome back to That Business Show 2.0, where business becomes show business. I'm your host, Jamie Maloney. New shows air each weekday morning at 7 a.m. and we'd love to get you on the program too. Simply visit tbsinterview.com. Every time I do a show by myself like today, it means we didn't have a guest to fill the spot. So take advantage. We got room. We're doing this 5 days a week, 2 different guests each and every weekday morning, with the exception of Thursdays when we air the real estate edition of the program, which is real estate talk catered towards anybody in real estate, from real estate professionals to buyers and sellers. And those episodes air each Thursday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time inside That Business Network. So we're talking about in the segment, you know, a journey making the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and how they are a brand bigger than the band itself, how people have come in and out of the band, including the face of the band, Steve Perry, in the 80s, who has been away from the band for 20 plus years, actually 30 when he really left. He came back in the 90s for a duration. But the brand withstood the test of time. The fans love the brand more than the individual band members themselves. And that's what you got to think about in business. You got to think of building a brand that you can step outside of, that your salespeople can step outside of, and other people can come in, and that you have the systems, processes, and procedures put in place to mirror, you know, what your clients and that your customers want, because ultimately that's what they're attracted to. Yes, I mean, the people make up the business. People do business with people they like, and there is a component of that. But if you're able to offer that same level of excellence, that same level of service, then through your systems, processes, and procedures, you're going to get repeat clients. You're going to get repeat business, and you're not going to be punished when you step outside of the business, or your best salespeople step outside of the business. So again, Journey, an excellent representation of a brand bigger than themselves, and a blog that I wrote this past week, made available over on TampaBayRadioBlog.com. A lot of different blogs on that site, a lot of different show recaps, a lot of good information. Just one of the many resources that I provide to my listeners and my viewers as I begin to build, or continue to build up, this business network that grew out of the first real estate show that I did back in September 2013. And again, thatbusinessnetwork.com, where you can get more information. Come on board and join the network. It's in its infancy right now as I begin to develop that site, but it will become a site with a lot of products for business owners, resources, blogs, and I will be reaching out to the different guests that have been on the program to be contributors to the site. So I want it to be a site where business owners can get different resources, different products, different coaching, see different blogs, sort of a site for business professionals, for helping them grow, start, and develop their businesses. And that's what thatbusinessnetwork.com is going to be all about. So I was talking about, Journey and them becoming a brand that sustained the test of time. And I'm a big lover of music. We're talking about how Arnel Pineda got onto YouTube, or got found on YouTube, and how you as a business owner need to be available on all across the internet. But it's hard to develop LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Pinterest and all these different channels. And so where do you want to be? Where should you be? And so while you should have a presence on each of the different channels, you want to know where your audience is primarily. And if you're a performer, YouTube is definitely a place where you want to be. I'm on YouTube with the YouTube channel, thatyoutubechannel.com, where all these shows are put into play. Who knows, maybe someday I'll be discovered by a news network who likes my interviewing style, or a newspaper who wants to develop a video show in conjunction with their paper to interview different professionals. I don't know, but nonetheless, I put it out there. It's up on YouTube, and just a great place to get your message out to your community. But ultimately, knowing where your fans are, or where your clients are, or where your customers are, that's where you want to be. So we got several minutes here left in the program, and I talk about music at times on the program, and Journey inspired me this past week in seeing the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up in the 80s as a great lover of the hard rock scene. My three favorite bands: Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, and no bands were better than them in the 80s, in my opinion. Now, there are many great bands. I'm a huge lover of Pink Floyd, huge lover of the Beatles, in different genres of music. But the 80s rock scene, the 90s alternative scene, which upset the flow of hard rock / heavy metal, although I kind of put heavy metal in a category all by itself. I don't like to refer to the 80s hair bands as heavy metal, because if you know what true heavy metal is, it's nothing like what the hard rock scene of the 80s that grew out of LA primarily, and then turned all the males into females on the rock stages, and that's what I was first exposed to, and led to the grungy scene in the 90s. Developed out of Seattle, and I can remember watching Kurt Cobain and Nirvana on MTV for the first time, and how the song Smells Like Teen Spirit changed the landscape of music forever. And it inspired me. I knew I was listening to a unique song the moment that song came on the air, that I picked the phone, called my best friend, and said, turn on the MTV right now, you got to hear this song. I never heard any song like it. And the 90s were rich with great alternative style music, with bands such as Stone Temple Pilots and Pearl Jam, and we saw a lot of the heavy metal bands disappear, but the ones that were powerful sustained themselves and were able to transcend generations, such as Journey, such as Metallica. They were able to innovate and develop and change their sound, which segregated off a large portion of their base, but they understood that to survive in the music business, that they were going to have to change. They were going to have to develop a unique sound, a different sound. And so when the Black Album came out in 1990 or 1991, it had a sound unlike Kill 'Em All, unlike Ride the Lightning, and Justice for All. They're 80s albums, and to this date, they are still innovated. There's a lot of bands that are out there still playing shows, but they play their old music. Metallica is still writing music, still putting out new albums, and still a major player in the music scene. Metallica being my favorite band, James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, the core of that band. Love those guys. Love those guys very much, and so just one of my favorite bands to listen to, and how they innovate and how they have changed with the times. But it's sad to see, though, in my opinion, the decline in traditional pop rock music. And so much is made today about short songs, catchy songs, boy bands, girl bands that have the quick 3 minutes and out. You don't get to hear songs on the radio or on really. There is no standard of listening anymore. Podcasts are starting to take over radio. People are listening to on-demand content available, on YouTube. And so it's becoming more and more difficult to find, these bands that are out there. The music is still out there. The sounds haven't gone away. It's just that discoverability feature that has changed. And if you've listened to the show before, you've heard me talk about the theory that, when the illegal downloading mess, started to develop in the late 90s, early 2000s, when Napster and LimeWire and all those different sites came onto the scene, these record companies dumped tons and tons and tons of resources into fighting the illegal downloading. That was taken away from talent development and talent acquisition, and gone were the days of going out and finding these bands. And so talent really, or I should say the music scene really suffered in the years 2000. There's no bands that are in the rock business that originated in 2000 and past that really motivate and inspire me. There's been a few in the last couple of years that are decent. Hailstorm comes to mind. Disturbed, which came about in the early 2000s. Linkin Park, which may have originated, they're probably more towards the later 90s. Those are the bands that still have a unique sound, but it's so difficult to find talent these days because of the muddied waters of the music scene. You got to get discovered today on YouTube. Record companies not finding traditional talent the way that they used to. And it's sad because there was so much great music that came from the 50s, with the British invasion, and the 60s, and the hippie scene, and the 70s, and the southern rock bands out of the 70s, and the 80s rock legends, and the 90s alternative musicians. 2000 doesn't have a definition to it. It has nothing to define itself. It has nothing that I can see my grandchildren in multiple generations listening to, at least not in the rock space. Country music may have a heyday right now. I don't know. I don't listen to any country music, but there's just not music that is of quality, that is going to transcend generations the way music did. So if you're a millennial, I feel bad for you, because the music that you're listening to today, the more technotronic sound, the dance music, the EDM stuff, it's catchy. I listen to it too, but it's not gone are the days of the Beatles and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and Leonard Skinner and GNR and Motley Crue, Metallica, all of the great bands that had a unique sound and influenced so many and sold out stadiums when they would play. But gone are those days, in replacement for boy bands, for music that is produced. You have a singer, you have a songwriter, and you have musicians, all with their separate roles, and then they put it together. That's great, but it loses its connectivity with the audience when you have bands that you write the music together, that sing the music together, that play the instruments together. But the boy band scenes, you definitely ruined that. And the last 10 to 15 years has given me nothing to make me think that music is going to improve in the coming years. But who knows? Maybe it will. Hopefully it does. A great movie that you should see, though, if you're a lover of music, definitely check out Rock of Ages. It really tells the story of the 80s, 90s, and boy band transition in a humorous, comical way. So check out Rock of Ages, the movie. It's also a play out there in Las Vegas, and probably travels around the country too. So check out that too, a great movie as well. So again, this show airs each weekday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to come on the program and share a story with us, visit tbsinterview.com. You've been listening to the all-new That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.